All right, welcome back. And we're going to give you all the Social Security you can handle. Ready? I'm excited, I will tell you that, to bring in our guest today to talk about Social Security, Joe Elsasser, Certified Financial Planner. He is with Covisum and also Sequent Planning Group. And so Joe is here because I have been working with Joe using his software that he developed and actually holds a patent on how to calculate or optimize Social Security. There's a more technical definition, but that's the gist of it. I'm excited to have Joe on the program with us because not only doing work as an individual, helping people with their planning, but also being the master of this technology. Joe, welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited because I love what you've done. Joe's created a way for us as advisors to go in and calculate the best strategies and when to take Social Security. So we get to talk about that, which is very exciting for me. So let's dive right in for our viewers. For most people that retire in America, Social Security is a big part of their retirement income. You would agree with that?
Absolutely.
So,
one of the biggest.
I read a statistic the other day for 50% of retirees, Social Security represents 2/3 of their retirement income.
Indeed.
So if you're worried about them pulling the rug out from underneath you, that will be kind of hard for them to do. You vote, ladies and gentlemen. So let's dig in, Joe. What's one of the biggest things that you see that people have a misconception about with Social Security?
Well, the biggest misconception's easy. It's retire, then claim. It's that Social Security is tied to work. And in some ways it is, but realistically, when someone retires, there's no requirement that they take Social Security. They could use a variety of other assets in order to delay their Social Security if that was the best decision for them. The fact is, I think people take it as a given. As soon as I stop work or as soon as I become eligible, I'm going to go ahead and claim.
So there's no Social Security truancy officer to come collect you and take you down to the Social Security office and say, hey, you didn't claim.
Not in the least. In fact, the penalty probably goes the other way.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Yeah, there are penalties for taking early. And a penalty maybe is one way to put it. You know, you take it early, you're going to be drawing it over a longer period. You're getting it sooner, so then you get less.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
When you think about it in terms of a monthly benefit, Social Security is actuarially equivalent. So if everybody lived exactly to average life expectancy and died right on time, whether you claim early or you claim late would be completely irrelevant.
The feds wouldn't care.
They don't care.
Okay.
At the same time, we don't live in that world. You might live to be 100, I might die at 75. And so that is not a fact. And claiming early for someone who is has a high likelihood of living a very long time represents a penalty, where claiming late for that same person represents a bonus.
Well, and that really is one of the key things we want to get across to the viewers today, Joe, is that you've got to couch this decision about when you're going to start Social Security within your personal situation. Do you have other, if you retire or you're forced to retire and you're going to make that decision about Social Security, it's a moot question about whether to take it if you don't have other money to draw on for income.
Absolutely true.
And there's this kind of, I don't want to be critical, but some pundits that would have you eat dog food to avoid drawing Social Security because everybody's got to wait, There are definitely advantages, but there are many reasons why people can also draw early, and it makes sense for them.
Oh, absolutely. And in two-earner couples, when you have a married couple, oftentimes it makes sense for one member of the couple to actually claim early.
So we've got the decision about when to take it. Normal retirement age for most people now that are in the retirement zone is 66 to 67, right?
Indeed.
All right. And that's part of the decision. But then the second part is what you spoke to about couples and also different situations where somebody needs to make an election. So describe generally, what is an election? How does that work? How do you maybe combine some of these techniques?
Probably the biggest thing for people to understand is that if you walk into the Social Security office and you file for benefits, you're going to get the highest of the things that you're eligible for. Now, that might not always be the best decision. In some circumstances, you might want to claim a spousal benefit, which is a benefit based on the work of your spouse while delaying your own. Now, that's only available for people who turned 62 last year or before. So it's not available to younger folks, but it's still a huge opportunity for people who are retiring today. That said, there are also opportunities for widows to claim maybe a widow benefit while delaying their own retirement benefit, or a retirement benefit while delaying a widow benefit.
And it might not only be their recently deceased spouse, but it might be a ex-spouse.
It could even be an ex-spouse.
So I think one of the other things that's key for people to take away here, Joe, is that the earnings history of a spouse or ex-spouse or yourself, any of one of those three might be the one that you can quote unquote file on and get the most benefit from.
Quite true.
Okay, so when we look at a person's Social Security benefit statement, they can see, of course, their situation. To be able to really properly evaluate what's best for them and maybe utilize your software, which I, of course, am a continuing subscriber, thank you, they need to know those other people's earnings records, right?
Either the other people's earnings records or information about their benefit.
Okay.
Ideally, the best place to start is the earnings record, because then you can strip out all the assumptions that the Social Security Administration makes when preparing the estimate.
Okay.
And that can be valuable. That's obviously more the work of a financial planner than it is something someone would do on their own.
Okay. So here's another question the viewers are going to want me to ask you. Well, what if I don't talk to my ex-spouse and you know, we haven't talked in years, but I know he made a lot of money and he's got a good earnings record, but I can't get the earnings report from him. What can they do?
Really what they'll need to do is, one, establish proof of the marriage.
Okay.
So they'll need to have been married for at least 10 years.
10 years, okay.
That's the threshold. They'll need to bring in proof of the marriage, proof of divorce to a Social Security office. And then, assuming they ask the question in such a way that it's relevant to them, in other words, they would ask, how much would I get were I to elect a benefit based on my ex-spouse's work? Okay. If they ask the question that way, then Social Security can divulge information. Okay. But if they say, how much would my ex get, Social Security won't divulge the information, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, they close that little door down. They don't want to talk to you.
They do.
So when you get into those calculations, then it might make sense to draw one way or another.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that can all be part of the decision. Do you find that when people are equipped with this knowledge, and I know you've got a lot of advisors all over the country that are using your software, do you find that when people are equipped with this knowledge and understanding the different ways they can maximize their benefit, do a lot of people actually really embrace it?
Oh, absolutely. It makes a significant difference.
Because you're talking about, you know, potentially huge dollars over time, especially for somebody who expects to live a long time.
Absolutely. What we find, we actually just took a sample this year after all the recent legislative changes and said, on average, what does a typical couple stand to benefit by virtue of delaying claiming or following one of these strategies, which is not always delay. And the average was about $114,000. So it's a not insignificant chunk for the vast majority of Americans.
That's excellent. Well, one of the common strategies I know that you have talked a lot about, because I've been to your training program, is having one spouse delay their Social Security, typically the higher earner spouse, and then have the other one either start theirs or draw off of the other one, depending on what's the best way. That can translate to a lot of money, a lot more money, maybe when that person hits age 70. But the thing that sometimes people overlook is how the Social Security survivorship benefit works. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because that's something that's really big.
It's huge. It's one of the biggest things for married couples to understand. When the first member of a couple passes away, the survivor will receive, this is rough, but the survivor will receive the higher of his or her own benefit or the benefit of the deceased. So when you think about how to structure that initial decision, it often makes sense to have one benefit be as large as possible, because that's going to last as long as either member of the couple is alive, while making the other benefit as small as possible, because that's the one that's going to go away upon the first death. And so you have really kind of a split strategy is what we find ourselves talking about quite a bit, where you might have the lower wage earner claim early, higher wage earner delay, and that can make a lot of economic sense.
Well, I ran these numbers recently for a couple, and when we did the math, just as you described, Joe, it ended up being that the survivorship benefit for either one of them, of course, was $40,000 a year in Social Security benefits. Now, when I'm building a financial plan, being able to bring $40,000 in at age 70 that then would continue on for either one of them, that makes my job, quite candidly, a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. You can think of it as the cheapest life insurance that money can buy.
That's really a good way to put it.
It really is.
Because it's going to be something that they can rely on, and we talked about this before. I think that people who are already retired or approaching retirement soon can definitely rely on Social Security.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of different ways that they can tinker with it to make it work, and it really, I think, undergirds a lot of our society, knowing that that's out there for people when they retire.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk about the importance of having other assets or other income to draw on when you're trying to take advantage of some of these strategies, either to delay or the technique you use when you actually file.
Sure, there's two elements there. One is whether or not you have the ability to delay, because if you haven't saved or you don't have any liquid assets, then you may not have the ability to delay. So the first is ability. The second is advantage. And what I mean by that is whether we draw from IRA money or whether we draw from non-qualified or non-retirement money or whether we use a reverse mortgage to delay Social Security, there are a variety of different pools of money we could use to delay Social Security, and each carry their own tax implications, right? Most of the time, every dollar I take out of my 401k or IRA is going to be taxable. Where that's not true, I might pay capital gains if I have just an investment account. Very different tax treatment. And so the way that interacts with a Social Security benefit decision can create some incredible tax efficiency as well.
Not all dollars are created equal.
Not even close.
So you've got the IRA, you've got the 401k, you've got your Roth IRA, you've got your equity in your home that you might pull on through a regular mortgage or reverse mortgage. What else? You've got annuities that may be tax deferred.
Part-time work income.
Part-time work income. All of those things is where people, in looking at that plan, I guess this is where, of course, why so much of Social Security is looked at by financial planners.
Absolutely.
And that people trying to do it on their own. I think one of the other things that's critical is that people need to look at their situation and not go based on the advice of what their friend or family has recommended. You know, well, I took it at 62, you should too. Not necessarily.
We had a whole chapter in my book called "This Is Not Your Father's Social Security."
Right.
Because the rules changed from, the prior generation to this generation retiring. They'll change again for the next generation retiring. There's no doubt about that. And so when you look at the decision in the context of the rules that exist at that time, the result, what you should do, varies significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we all have seen stories of the widow who is still receiving, after all of the years, this Social Security and maybe a pension and other things because of that generation. But, the ramifications can be very long-term. So I think one of the key things we want to have the viewers think about is the decision you make on Social Security needs to be planned out. It needs to be something that you've spent some time and haven't just said, okay, yeah, that knee-jerk reaction, I've retired, I'm going down to the Social Security office to file. That you actually take the time to do the planning and do the calculations so you know how all these things are going to work and whether it's realistic or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about it as just another pool of money. Just like your IRA, just like your 401k, just like your Roth if you've got one.
One way to look at it that I tell people is that it's like an annuity that is a lifetime of income. It's really it's a lifetime of income as an annuity for that person, but also it's joint or could be joint. In other words, which one's higher, I'll take the higher of. And it's backed by the U.S. government. Not bad. Not a bad guarantee. I mean, not a bad guarantee. Anything else that you've seen, Joe, that I think would be helpful for the viewers in terms of people have made either mistakes or, again, some of these myths or misconceptions?
I think the biggest myth is that you can look at Social Security in a vacuum, make a decision without evaluating everything else that's going on in the client's financial life. Oftentimes you'll run software, like my own software included. You'll run that software and it will put a strategy on the table that's best in a vacuum. Where the real value of a financial planner that ends up incorporating that in the overall strategy is identifying places where it doesn't work with everything else that's going on. I think that's the biggest misconception, is that we can do this in a vacuum without thinking about anything else. you really have to take that second step and bring it into the context of the client's overall financial life.
Well, this is why, and that's well put, Joe. This is why the robots are not making the decisions. This is why real financial planners with skin and bones actually add value. That we run the numbers using your software, Joe, and we'll see the different scenarios and what's optimal. Take it at 65, have the other person take it at 67, but then we look at their assets and their other income, and then we listen to their personal situation. Where I'll be meeting with a couple and they'll say, well, nobody's in my family's ever lived past 70. Well, then we're gonna have to reevaluate.
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes that's where that split strategy can make a lot of sense.
Yeah, hedge your bets, ladies and gentlemen. All right, thank you again, Joe. Appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me.
If you would like more information about the topics and our guests featured in this series, please visit our website at PlanStrongerTV.com. Also, if you have a question you would like David to answer, please send it to questions@PlanStrongerTV.com.